Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
There
afternoon.
just couldn't have been, better time to have been born in India. The world around us is facing multiple, geopolitical challenges, and there's a large looming possibility of a recession. We in India, of course, are looking at a 6 to 6.5% GDP growth and gearing up ourselves for a decade of growth, leading up to various figures that we might potentially hear of a $5 trillion economy and eventually a $10 trillion economy. I'm not sure if some of you happened to read the Goldman Sachs report, which came out a week back, which states that India is looking at becoming the second largest economy in the world by bypassing the United States by 2075. While that's a long time away, I think some of the more interesting points which were made is the reasons why India would be accomplishing that by 2075. So, of course, one is clearly the population. Second thing is the country's rapid progress on the basis of UPI, Aadhaar, etc., and all that, and of course innovation and technology, higher capital investment. But of course, the most important part which was put across was rising worker productivity, right? So while 60-65% of the population is below the age of 30, I think it's also important that these workers are productive, and some of the topics that we're going to discuss today is largely around that. Of course, all of us know that with growth comes its own set of challenges. In the workforce, we today across businesses we face three large challenges of attrition, of hiring, and productivity. All these three are getting impacted not just by the sheer scale of demand, but also getting impacted by technology. Today, therefore, we intend to speak about two of these challenges, namely hiring and how technology is impacting it. We are, of course, hearing a lot of buzz around AI and smart bots and so on. We'll have a discussion on how can we make most of it. Secondly, retention and upskilling, right? Some discussion about what employees are expecting, and given the pace of change, how can we upskill and upgrade our employees to let them be prepared, for the challenges they are going to face both inside and outside the organization from a career perspective. This and much more, and therefore, before we start, let me introduce to you my panelists who are going to deliver this topic for us. First, Ms. Lucky Kulkarni. She's a senior human resource organization development professional and a change management expert with more than 24 years of experience in creating and implementing strategies across HCM. Lucky has professional experience across various sectors, including manufacturing, IT and ITES, retail, and global logistics. She's currently working as the country group head human resources for a global logistics 120 years young company called Gina & Co. and its 13 group companies. She's written articles and interviews on human resources in leading magazines and newspapers. She's been a jury member for several awards and competition. Last year, she was felicitated with Dr. Tarita Shankar Award for excellence in HR sector. She was also selected in the talent listing by World HR Congress, who conferred Lucky as one of the 101 top fabulous HR leaders in India. And she was also felicitated with the HR Super Achiever Award by World Leadership Congress in collaboration with Times and.
Thank you. Thank you. Such a elaborate introduction. Thank you.
Welcome, Lucky. Let me go to Mrigank. With a decade's worth of experience gained through different roles like Ed, HR BP, Talent Acquisition, and Talent Management Lead, Mrigank has anchored HR functions in different stages of business cycle, including scale-up, expansion, restructuring, and realignment of organizational priorities. He's worked with Reliance Consumer Products, Cloudtail, which is JV of Amazon, and ABFRL, which is your Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail in the FMCG, e-commerce, and retail industries. Most of his significant experiences with Reliance Retail Consumer Brands, where he leads a team of regional HR BPs to drive the HR charter for general trade sales and category teams. Mrigank has experience in designing and executing large-scale recruiting mandates, which is going to be one of the major topics today. And of course, in building HR practices in productivity, business-led engagement charter, and organizational design. So Mrigank, welcome to you as well.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks a lot for a warm welcome. Thank you.
All right. So Lucky, we start with you with the first basic question. Has hiring, I mean, there's so much of buzz around this. Has hiring fundamentally changed because of technology? Or is it still, vacillating between an art and a science because there's so much which we expect out of a recruiter? Do we really see technology disrupting things beyond the usual resume indexation and job portals? Where do you see technology playing a role, and how do you think it's impacting hiring?
I think very, very important question. Yes, hiring is already experiencing significant change due to technology, and it is likely that these trends have continued and evolved further. But this hiring process has been influenced by technology in several ways, but it can still be seen as a blend of art and science. I personally feel human touch cannot be taken away. See, while technology has certain disrupted and improved various aspects in hiring, there are still areas where human touch remains essential, like interviewing, evaluating cultural fit, and making final decision often involve subjective judgment that requires human intervention. Looking ahead, it's likely that technology will continue to evolve and impact the hiring landscape. Further, the advancement in AI and machine learning, as well as the growing adoption of automation, may lead to more innovative and efficient hiring practices. However, the importance of human judgment, empathy, interpersonal skills in the hiring process is unlikely to diminish. As a result, hiring will continue to be a combination of art and science, with technology playing a prominent role in streamlining and augmenting the process. I personally feel, see, automation, the AI, all this is good. Technology is good, but no automation, no technology can replace a handshake or a pat on the back. So human will continue to play an important role, and it will always be a blend between science and arts.
No, thanks, Lucky. So I think taking from that, you're saying it's going to be a mix of both. Definitely,
Yes.
there is a role for technology to play, and of course,
yes.
it's definitely going to be the intuitiveness of a potential recruiter, who's looking at the candidate.
See, technology always adds value. So if I look back 1.5 decades back, I used to visit bank very often. Today, I don't remember when did I visited bank. Technology played a very important role. Did the bank stop recruiting? Are there no people in the bank? No, they've only added value. The technology has only added value, and humans could do things better. Similarly, for hiring in all these processes, it's a lengthy process. I can give you an example. Recently, we just posted one vacancy, and I had 800 resumes within 2 days. Where do I see all of them? But if I don't see, I'm doing injustice to those applicants. I need an AI to shortlist my resume. I need automation. I need those interventions.
No, and we'll come to that, and that's interesting because part of working in a large country with a large population is also the scale of the number of people applying for a set of jobs is enormous, and of course we at some point in time the linearity that we expect cannot the productivity that we expect cannot be basis the number of people deployed. We need to use some sort of a tool to be able to shortlist them, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Megam, coming to you therefore, how do we therefore see, given some amount of technology coming in, the role of recruiters changing? Do you see a change in the future that they work from the way they currently working?
So, okay, I'll give you perspective from three different angles. One is the quality of work of recruiters is improving over a period of time. Earlier, they were spending a lot of time sourcing candidates, looking at the job portals, sourcing 3 or 4 set of CVs and convincing the hiring manager how it is a good fitment to a job description. As compared to that, now they are more focusing on LinkedIn recruiter giving better set of options to them and shortlisting CV based on a 30-40 options available to them. Okay, the quality of work of recruiters has gone up. I mean, it was earlier a lot dependent on hiring managers. The decision of hiring, now recruiters are playing a very important role. Second, the capability of recruiters now are required in different domains. I mean, social media recruiting and ability to pitch candidates and convince them. These are 2 skill sets which are more prominent now as compared to what it was 5 years or 10 years ago. Earlier, it was even if you don't know anything about social media recruiting or how to reach through cold mails or through LinkedIn messages, you can still make a mark. Right now, it's important for recruiters to network especially with the specific candidates. Like I know a lot of people who just build their network, irrespective whether they have a job in hand and all. That becomes a different kind of skill set that you expect from recruiters. And it's not about making offer, good CTC and all. Those are basic stuff, which a lot of automation is coming into picture. Third, organization process is also changing a lot in terms of automation. There are good ATS available now, which are easy to use. The ATS, the usability was little low 10 years ago, and as compared to what I see it now. Because the ATS, a lot of things are automated, reminders, scheduling of interviews. A lot of these things are easy to work. It's not, I'm not talking about tool, but it's not literally very easy to work around those tools. That has changed last 5 to 7 years in terms of ease of tool, and a lot of operational aspects are little easier as compared to what it was earlier. You have to rely on a lot on your memory that, okay, what your schedule, what is pending, maybe notebooks, Excel sheet and all, those things are now automated. So processes are now more streamlined. It means that you can add more complexity to the entire selection process. Let's suppose you are having 5-member interview, 5-panel based interview process on a 3 or 4 cultural tenets, functional competency. You can have those complexities come there because you can converge all of that information and just by the use of technology very quickly, and you can have a entire debrief notes for one candidate fully automated, and everyone can take a decision very easily. Earlier it was more of a one email going for one candidate. I like the guy, didn't like the guy, another person commenting on it. So those things, the organization processes are getting evolved with the help of automation. Just to summarize, so 3 areas: capability of the recruiter, change in the way HR processes are being designed, and third, more in terms of more options available, and recruiters are playing an important role. I guess that is the way forward I see it.
No, fantastic. I think there's also some really great points. So there is an overall, I would say platform improvement, which is making the recruiters more productive, definitely around, their ability to schedule, automate tasks and being able to reach out. And of course, that is critical given the scale that we are, we are trying to achieve. I think the second more important part, and I like it, I think from a skill set perspective, I think they also need to kind of pivot around saying, do I need to look at social media or other platforms to be able to recruit? Because that's where your catchment area is, right? So I think that's also an important point. And Lucky, I'll come back to you on one of the points that you made earlier, which was around AI shortlisting, right? And there is like a raging debate on pluses and minuses of it. Is automation in itself good? Because I think part of what the disbelievers are saying is, can it be that when you're trying to shortlist with an AI tool at scale, they end up learning human biases, and now those biases are going to run at scale? After all, it's humans who have coded in some of these tools. So what's your view around that? So there's a tool which is made by humans, and they're going to run that tool, right?
Yes, that is one problem. Yes, automation, particularly when driven by artificial intelligence and machine learning, can indeed present ethical dilemmas. So one significant concern, which I see with AI system is to perpetuate and amplify human biases at scale. Like for example, an AI model learns the data from the trained, from how they are trained. So if the training data contain biased information, the AI system may learn and reinforce those biases. Like for example, if historical hiring data is biased against certain demographic, an AI-powered hiring tool may perpetuate these biases, leading to discriminating hiring processes. So yes, many AI algorithms, especially the complex deep learning models, can be challenging to interpret and understand fully. The lack of transparency can make it difficult to identify and address the biased decision-making processes within the AI system. See, AI system can process a vast amount of data and make decisions much faster than human can do, which means biased decision can propagate and impact a large number of individuals. So the researchers and developers must work on developing AI algorithm that provides fairness and avoid discrimination. So all automation comes with some sort of a threat also. So this is one of the threats which I do see.
Yeah, no, I think clearly there is there is more to it than meets the eye. I think there's definitely one needs to look out as to how some of these logics has been built, because a part of the machine learning is, let's say for example, it is learning constantly to, for example, exclude above a particular age group, for example.
Yes.
Then I think it is going to do that at scale. If it is going to kind of think through saying to exclude a gender, then it's probably going to think at that scale to be able to do it. I don't think so there's an easy answer to it to be able to figure out. Obviously, I think there is a need for technology to be able to kind of help us with that, but we need to kind of figure out what is going to be the balance on the entire thing. Perhaps a bit of oversight at this stage if you are utilizing some of those tools, especially to screen, right? I know today it's largely around what do you call individual keywords, which is at a base level where the shortlisting is happening. But clearly, I think there is that. I mean, that is one area where there is there's a major concern as to what will happen. And I'll just switch back again, keeping on the topic of technology and automation, etc., and all that. So typically, and given the background that you come from, Brigank, especially around e-commerce and retail, etc., and all that, where the scale of people required is so much, and of course the demand is high and the supply is always a constraint. So three things that we typically kind of look at, when it comes to recruitment. One is clearly cost to hire. Right. So if you're going to screen 1,000 resumes to get 5 people, then obviously there is a cost because of the recruiter time and the amount of overall time that is required, and of course notional loss due to business needs not getting fulfilled at a particular time. Then of course there is speed to hire. I want to make sure the business is going to put pressure on everybody, saying, can you get me this candidate tomorrow? And lastly, of course, while you're doing this at all speed and cost and all that, the quality of hire. Where do you see technology specifically, at least as we speak today, can impact between cost and between speed and quality of hire?
So technology in my view, has an impact on all three areas. Cost to hire, just to pick up the first one. In my view, there is a lot of scope to reduce the cost of hire, because as Lucky was giving reference that she has posted, someone from her team has posted a job and she has the 800 CVs. Perhaps the recruiter has to just scroll through 30 to 40 CVs at max to identify a set of 5 or 6 people and go to the hiring manager, shortlist, and get it 2 or 3 people in interview. Perhaps one person would be selected. So rather than, of course, there is some amount of injustice to the rest of the people, but recruiter's job is a little easier. I mean, he or she doesn't need to reach out to candidate, pitch the role. It's other way around. The technology has enabled that pool of applicants are available, and if on top of it, if there is an AI tool, it can throw set of 20, 30 profiles which are more suitable to the JD, as per the JD of the role, then cost to hire can decrease. Only pitfall is, I mean, the same thing any other organization could also do for your existing set of employees. Okay, so it becomes easy for anyone to apply. Even if someone is not looking out, it's like a thing that, okay, you're not interested to watch that particular movie on OTT, but if you're available on 2 hours on Saturday, you end up watching that. It is easy to available, it's very accessible. Okay, so there is some amount of tendency for the people who are retained and engaged well. It's not linked to cost of hire, but it's a pitfall. It's easy to apply. That's my whole point. Speed to hire, it has a great impact. The entire automation part has a great impact on speed to hire, because in this example of 800 CVs and how you're shortlisting, many of my friends who are in executive search firms, for them it's become easier to go through profile, shortlist, and move ahead on that, because there are availability of talent overall. Quality of hire is a highly debatable point in my view, and it's an interesting debate. One side, I see that at automation or AI tools can help to give you better candidate in the first beginning, but a lot is determined by your selection process and kind of automation you're building in, and what kind of energy and time you're spending in terms of the selection process. When I was Cloudtail, we used to have a debrief after 5 rounds of interviews, where everyone used to come with notes on the leadership principles, their observations on that, and there used to be a healthy debate and discussion whether we need to go ahead with the hire or not. And automation plays an important role, how you combine all those information together and arrive at the decision making. So quality of hire is dependent on a lot on the way organization is using the technology part. These are interesting times. Jobs are available. It's very easy to apply to any job with a click of a button. and recruiters have a lot of options. So it's a very interesting situation and has both positive and negative, which I try to narrate on all these three aspects.
No, thanks, Megha. And I'll just follow up in that with you only. So I think cost and speed, I think clearly, positives, perhaps quality, not so much. So we got to really see saying how it comes together. And of course, and that's what, Lucky was mentioning, there's a bit of an art and science to the entire thing. Even if you step back, a couple of years back, one of the major grouses, for candidates typically has been saying, hey, listen, I've applied for something. I've not even got a response saying what's happened to me. Right. And this is, initial days of automation, you would notice some of the companies would send across a auto reminder saying, or not reminder, saying some sort of automated
message.
Yeah. You're not shortlisted and so on and so forth. In an environment where, 800 resumes would get screened and 40 shortlisted. And by the way, also kind of been preview to a few startups which are doing this entire, chatbot interview thing and so on and so forth. What do you think is the impact, or is there an impact from a candidate experience perspective? I mean, there is so much that we do to kind of, bring forth a candidate to say, hey, listen, this is the company, have a look around, these are the kind of people who work here. There is so much which goes across to attract talent. When all of this gets replaced by what feels like a very clinical model of hiring, do you see an impact, or do you see it really depends on, the sliding scale of where that role is?
So I'll try to answer this question from perspective of candidate and from the perspective of employer. From the perspective of candidate, it was never a situation where candidates used to get a proper response from organization when technology was not existing. Okay. Even 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we all were applying. There were people who were applying all around us, but they were not feeling bad that someone has not closed it with them. The sense of importance to ourself, our own self or ego, that was not that strong. The age of social media and importance to my own self, this trend is there that, okay, I need to have a response. The second part is, which is linked with the employer. Employer carries some amount of risk when he or she, the employer, is responding to through an email or through any message to that candidate that, okay, you are not selected, because that there is some amount of legality involved over there. It could be a case situation that, okay, on what basis you're rejecting me? I have certain things on JD, okay, and that email response after interview becomes, the severity is much more, because what you are conveying to the candidate needed to be answerable, maybe perhaps at some day to a neutral person who could be a judge or in a court. Okay, there is some amount of risk over there as well. I mean, we are very early right now, but in US and Europe, there are a lot of lawsuits around this particular thing. Last thing is expecting, when we apply to a job, you also know that at the end of the day, 1,000 people, 800 people, 500 people have applied. And chances of me getting a response is also low. But still people apply. And unfortunately, people, let's suppose there is a role of a TA head. Recruiter of 2 years will also go and apply. That also goes with the judgment of that individual. So accountability lies on both sides, also on the employer and also on the candidates. To fair, for that 2-year experience, recruiter will expect that, okay, somebody will even maybe look at that CV itself. You're doing injustice to that hiring manager, recruiter, who's evaluating those CVs.
Got it.
Correct?
Yeah. No, I think great points. And that brings me, Lucky, to a different question, but related, and I'm sure the audience would want to hear it. Is there a possibility, therefore, then we will have a group of people who will be who will probably ace the system? If there is a system which is going to look through 800 resumes, is it possible that individuals will figure out saying, okay, if I have to get shortlisted, my resume needs to look exactly like this for the bot to pick it up, right? So that's one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is, therefore, what would be fundamentally, because I think the entire problem of you being able to land a good job is your professional visibility as well, right? If you're not visible out there, so there is little chance of you being able to convert it, right? So do you see that as a risk as well, and therefore what should potentially candidates do?
Yeah, there is quite a lot of risk. So I have seen people applying And many people, they pick up the words from the JD and they put it in their resume. So, the bot picks up very easily. So when I'm actually meeting those people, I realized that, okay, the similarity was so high with the bot. But then I say, yes, human intervention is required to judge, because the more automation comes in, the more we become smart, the more we start applying our things. So nowadays, a lot of resume that I get is showing so much of similarity, but when I meet them, they are not. So this is one trend that I do see.
Yeah, so
Another thing I was wanting when Mrigank was answering, I just saw one thing I wanted to express, that, the more dangerous is people know what is happening to their resume. So sometimes I do this dummy trial by applying myself to a job that we have posted. And I see it saying your resume delivered. Then it is not seen. 1 week, it is not seen. That means if I'm not seeing it, the person is getting to know that his resume is not seen, which is not very good. Then your resume was viewed, your resume was shortlisted, your resume was rejected. All these messages are available for candidates who are applying through the portal, which is again a dangerous situation, because if I'm not seeing their resume, that means I'm not giving a good impression about my company. How is it possible to see 800 resumes? And as Mrigang said, people apply. Just एक बोलते हैं ना, तुक्का मार दिया, चलो apply करते हैं. But they don't understand they're doing injustice to us. If you're not having the required number of years of experience, the skill set, you're just wasting our time and your time.
Yeah, no, definitely. Mrigank, do you feel technology has a role on it? I mean, there are, jobs where sometimes there is a set of 4 or 5 screening questions, before you're even able to kind of, get into applying for it. But I've not seen much of it. I've seen very little of it in some websites. Do you see, that AI can play a role even in much before the, shortlisting happens at your end? Some amount of basic screening? Hey, you're on mute, Mrigank.
So questions are an interesting set of, it's interesting too. I mean, if questions are crafted beautifully, you can really filter the right set of candidates. But based on my experience of LinkedIn, especially, there is very less flexibility of coining your own questions. There's a very limited set of options which LinkedIn provides. But this is a short-term thing, I'm sure. Within 1-2 years, somebody will point it out, someone will resolve it. But I'm yet to see any job opportunity which has intelligent set of questions. Okay, it's still dependent on number of years, whether you're open to the location, are you in this kind of a comp range or not, and those are kind of questions. Sometimes people also manipulate and provide right or wrong information. I guess there is some amount of journey to be covered before we arrive at a good set of questions. Okay, maybe AI or new kind of chatbots can help us to coin those questions. That would be interesting area to look into, but it requires a complete flexibility of designing the kind of questions. Last thing, Karthik, when we define questions, there is some amount of right. Questions need to be right also, in terms of that you are not discriminating, you are not playing in an area which is touching the law on that, law of the land. So those are things also be very careful about. And most of the time, these questions are defined by recruiter, who's maybe a 6 months, 1 year into the organization, not someone senior. So these are two interesting aspects. In summary, good tool, but yet to see a good implementation of it.
No, and I think that's a good segue to our next segment, which is, so one part is clearly, I think, the challenges around hiring, and as we understand, I think the tools are evolving. There are some basic aspects of the tools we can already use, and I think which has been in use for the last 24 odd months or even earlier than that. Some amount of being able to screen and shortlist and so on and so forth. Of course, scheduling and being able to do this at scale was existing for some period of time. I think the real pivot is going to come if we are able to figure out how to be able to do that with some amount of intelligence, making sure that the biases don't creep in. So that's one aspect of it. I think the other aspect of it is, I've kind of said this before. Most people are now looking at, given, and this is specific to India, given the sheer demand of talent, you are better off being able to retain your existing talent, right? So, and I've said before, retention is the new hiring. I think even before everything else, Mrigank, first question to you really is, has something fundamentally changed during the pandemic? I mean, there is a sense and feel of it, but I don't think so anybody's kind of able to put a finger at it. In fact, New York Times ran an article saying, hey, if you're not depressed, but you still don't feel like working, and a whole host of other surrogates, they coined a term called languishing, saying, hey, listen, you're languishing, and that's what you're experiencing. So it's happened to a lot of people, and of course, I think it's a tragic tragic set of years for humanity, and I'm sure there are far reaching impacts that nobody has really understood so far as well. But between prioritizing the work and personal life, in your conversation with your employees and your peer groups, have you felt that there is something fundamentally changed in the way employees view work in itself?
Yes, answer is definitely yes. So I'll try to give you two to three different perspectives. One big perspective which is coming very strongly is people have seen deaths of near ones during the pandemic. And they have seen the life very closely, a brutal phase of the life. And they started to give see and the importance of life beyond work. I started to question that, am I really making sense in my life by working for 9 to 10 hours? Can I take half salary or do something small business and run something of my own? This kind of a mindset is there. And many people who are doing business, but they are also going through this kind of a mindset. For them, working long, hard, maybe doesn't look exciting as it used to be earlier. People who are earning good also, people who are not earning good also. This is applicable all across. This is the one great perspective. People have seen life very closely in pandemic. Second, I guess a lot of things that we were doing it earlier in terms of engagement or in terms of welfare activities. I mean, the impact is limited post-pandemic in terms, and the expectations are a little different in terms of the expectations of working in the organization. And there is a lot of flexibility everyone is expecting around their work, around designing their personal life. Okay. Another little debated point, which I just want to keep it on the table, there is a huge impact on the entire value chain of the organizations as well. It could be in any sector. The entire value chain is constrained by some factors and which has an impact on cost. And each business, each industry is relooking at the way they are operating. That is the one thing which is getting unfolded as we are progressing to 22, 23, 24. Because in the new way of scheme of things, somewhere there were margin was more, now margin is less. Somewhere resources were available in a value chain, now it is not available. The organizations are getting redesigned in terms of their business model, which has a direct impact on the kind of talent they are hiring. So that's a big one, change which is happening on the way.
No, and Lucky, I'm just going to add to that, in the question I'm asking you. So I think the three aspects of it, clearly like the way, Mrigank has put. One is clearly, I think individuals have gone through a trauma, so their worldview has changed now. Second thing is their expectation now, and of course, this is like a major stress point as we speak. The demand and need for flexibility and for organizations to let go, right? And the jury is still out because there are different views to this as we speak. And of course, the third part is, the entire value chain having got disrupted because of ways of working got disrupted. I think those are 3 points that Mrigank put forward. Does the traditional, conceptual framework saying, hey, listen, why do employees leave? And typically understood saying it's manager, it's money, it's growth, right? And that's how we've kind of assessed as well. Manager, of course, being the first of it. Does some of those still remain in some view, or again, because of the pandemic, there's a fundamental disruption to the way employees are viewing their own work and choosing to stay or choosing to leave?
See, of course, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic are two different scenarios for people to think of leaving. So anytime like employee turnover is always a complex issue, and the reason for employee leaving can vary depending upon multiple factors. But now I can say after pandemic, people have started realizing the importance of being with loved ones. People have started understanding that there is life beyond work, because, at some point of time, we all got crazy and we started working, and we working like round the clock. I remember 24 years back when I started my career, 5 o'clock, the lights would be off, and we all would pack off to go home. Later on, this MNC culture came in, and till 7, 8, everyone is sitting, 9, people are sitting and working. So then we got into that league. But somehow after this pandemic, I personally feel that, the need to wind up, need to get back to your loved one is a factor that employees are considering. In fact, I got a very beautiful saying, a small quote, which I must read out. And I thought that this is really interesting. It says people don't quit jobs. They quit poor managers, poor compensation, poor culture, lack of growth, and lack of support. So I just got this saying, and it was so apt, that people see job, we have to do job in this company or any other company. So we're not quitting our jobs. What we are quitting is the poor manager, the culture, when we find no growth. Also, it's very important that today people are just not working for money. They're also working for a career growth. They also want to upskill themselves. So how much an employer or the organization are investing in upskilling their employees, giving them the career path? If they're not getting all these things, people leave. For definitely people leave. Money is one part, but more than money, it's also the environment, the culture, and also the need to grow, and what support are they getting from the employer. Health and safety concerns are again a very important aspect.
No, I'm just going to take from that to you, Mrigang. Culture, as an important aspect. Okay, and I kind of resonate with what Lucky said. I think over the last 20 years, a lot of things have significantly changed, right? During the initial phases of the economy opening up, and the way we kind of transformed in the way we work in any organization. The earlier concept was there is a degree of loyalty and you are with a company over a longer period of time. Now the concept is shifted to commitment, saying, hey, listen, I'm going to work for you for 1 year or 6 months, and I'm going to be committed for that duration to you. So that's one aspect of it. Has aspects of fun and engagement which used to be there earlier, in organizations, has that concept, is that still pertinent as we speak? And the reason why I'm asking is there seems to be a near mercenary approach, if I may use that word. I know it's a harsh word, on both sides, right? So there is a lot of layoffs which have happened, and therefore, of course, in the last 18 months or so in the tech world specifically, and therefore there's a conversation around employees saying, hey, listen, when I was in my most need, I was not useful, I was laid off. And of course, the other way around as well. In the pandemic, 1/3 of most developed nations' employees quit. And I'm, quoting statistics from the US. People, quit and shifted jobs, etc., and all that for whatever reason. So when we speak about culture, etc., and all that, have we now kind of reached saying, hey, listen, it's for money, there is value, and there is compensation, or there is an element of culture and fun engagement still kind of makes sense when it comes to employees?
Okay, so in my view, since the pandemic has given us so much of a reality check for everyone, whatever you used to do it earlier in terms of fun and engagement, it is making less sense now, and people are not able to relate that much, because for them, if you are consuming their time for any engagement activity, fun activity, they will. Now there is a lot of mindset that, okay, give us time, let us figure it out what we want to do it. Second, employees also need to relook at the way they are looking at engagement. There needs to be more genuineness in terms of care, in terms of flexibility, and in terms of autonomy that they want to provide it to the employees, rather than focusing on any kind of a engagement which could be business-led or non-business led. Okay, and there is a scope and there is a need of genuineness. That is a drastic shift. And third, in terms of employees, when you look at their expectation from engagement and all, they're more looking in terms of when you said that, okay, I'm committed for a year, I'm not going to work for a long period of time, I guess it's a short-term trend which will remain for next few years. But still, people will like to have affiliations, commitment towards group of community, or they would like to remain in an organization for a longer period of time. Those things will sustain, but this is the fad right now, which will continue for next few years. That okay, I can get multiple options. I'm young and I will work here for 1 year, 2 year. But at some point, everyone realizes that it makes sense to get into depth of certain role, spend more time. Those things matter out, work it out over a period of time. But genuineness is the need of the hour for any engagement model for any. Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point, and I particularly resonates with you, Mrigank. I think the point on autonomy. I think both the work from home, aspect of the push, and also for, I think most folks, while I think this, I would say probably the generation earlier was more focused on compensation, and I think this is something peculiar to India. I think the generation which is coming afterwards is looking more at time and autonomy, saying, "Hey, listen, yeah, I have the money, but I don't have time to enjoy it. I can't see how that would make sense, right, in any which way." So I think that's that's a trend that we're seeing ourselves. And just kind of keeping with that, Lucky, what is therefore do you see that potential employers need to do now in this environment for existing employees, and to signal to potential candidates out there, saying how do you position yourself as a brand? What aspects of your company do you put forward, saying, hey, listen, this is the place to work, come and work over here. So there's definitely compensation out there. You spoke about culture, etc., and all that. But when you're signaling, what are the important things now as compared to what it was earlier?
So I tell you, Karthik, I'm working for an organization which is 123 years young, and I have long service awards starting only from 10 years, and I have up to 35 years. So that is a population size, that is a population that I have. And more than 50% of my population is more than 10 years old. Now, having said that, for us, it has not made much difference except for people demanding for hybrid work. Now people have got comfortable. So initially people were complaining about working from home, but I think they saw the merit, being with the family, yet completing doing the work, being off from the chaos of traveling. And now people are demanding more for work. I personally feel any organization, first of all, rewarding is very important, and compensation is one of the good reward. Apart from compensation, giving a lot of variable pay is very important, I feel. See, today, everyone is getting a basic pay, okay, a CTC, what we want, and we got and we are working for. But if A is working fantastic and B is not working that fantastic, the difference of percentage might be just few, 2%, 3%. It doesn't give all the satisfaction. But if there is a variable pay attached to a person who's working and a huge variable pay, that will give an impact. That will really make you feel that my work is recognized. See, money is important, but more than that is your work is recognized, and that makes you feel happy. So I think that is one thing I would say, that all the organization must look at giving a very good variable pay. We are working towards that, and we aim to give more and more variable pay for the organization, for the employees. Apart from that, homegrown talent is very important. When I say homegrown talent, the senior position, we don't look outside. We first want our own people to grow and take that position. For that matter, we do succession planning, and more than that, we really identify people and we work upon it. Recently, 3 of my branch heads are homegrown branch heads. They have risen from the ranks, In fact, I have 3 board members who are executive directors for the board. They have joined the company 25 years back, and they have grown to that. So we really don't look for the higher level people outside. We prefer to polish our talent. So if that confidence comes into the employee, like this company is going to reward me, this company is going to recognize my work, this company has a growth path for me, I don't see why he has to leave. And of course, the culture is important. And that, see, we are a family-run company, but in a very professional way. So we have a mix of professionalism and the mix of family touch. So that combination is very important for each and every organization to make the person feel. And I think people will look for a longer period to continue with you. I'm experiencing that in this company.
No, I think that's fascinating, like including the examples that you give. And of course, it's your experience with a large logistics, well-established, company. In your particular case, where the growth might not be linear and the demand is explosive across, sometimes the opportunity to be able to give promotions to individuals internally might not be there. Also, at the same time, you might just want to induct, people from outside as well. But for a moment, staying with, internal folks, apart from, the aspects of compensation, etc., and all that, how do you see or how do you approach the fact that some of these individuals who are kind of working with us right now also need to be invested upon in terms of skilling them differently? Because clearly, I think there's a massive disruption which is taking place in all businesses impacted by technology, right?
Thanks for reminding me that, Karthik. I missed out. So before I answer this, let me tell you, we are open to looking for talent outside, but first we give preference to our own, homegrown talent. Unless we don't have that people ready for that particular position, then we go out. So we are open for it. It's not that, we are focused only on individual. Of course, our preference are, homegrown talent. Coming back, yes, we believe in a lot of training. So I can say in last 3 months, I had 300 trainings. So one quarter, if I see the number of trainings happening, it's almost 300. So we believe in training. We believe in upskilling people. We believe in sending people outside for training, and also we invite trainers from outside to come inside and to be a part of organization for training. Now see, mine is a specific role, unlike like footwear or apparel selling. Ours is like logistics. So a person needs to know the customs, needs to have the custom knowledge, the documentation knowledge, then the airlines connect, the shipping lines connect. So all those things, a lot of things can be trained within. So we have a robust training department within, where we try to give the flavor of all these things to people. And of course, we nominate people outside also. A lot of emphasis is made for training.
Got it. Thanks, Lagi. So, Brigam, your take on it in terms of, listen, there's a position, there is a business pressure on you saying, and of course, there's a pipeline of people and talent available as well. Is it fastest finger first on finding the right talent, putting them, or we take a bet on internal people, train them, upskill them, and of course, kind of put this across over a period of time so that there is more emphasis on individuals coming, because there's a lot of stuff which is changing, and it's not always possible that you might have the absolute right talent internally as well.
So this upskilling issue, I mean, the overall landscape is changing a lot last few years. A lot of options which are available free of cost for anyone to learn. I mean, whatever I have learned in the MBA school, I can learn easily by following few relevant channels on YouTube, which is available free of cost, or maybe some free courses are given by the Ivy League universities or maybe best universities from India. Okay, so question is not of content now. Question is more of a positioning, and question is also to provide flexibility. So one biggest thing which I think that all organizations need to think or maybe reevaluate is how much flexibility you want to provide to your workforce in terms of learning options, in terms of career plans, looking at building their own career swim lanes as compared to what is already hard-coded. Typically, HR has a talent management guidebook which talks about for you want to move from this role to another. There are 5 different ways, but there could be 10 different ways. That's how this entire pandemic and the new set of generation who thinks about it. Okay, I'll figure out my own way on that. And same kind of flexibility extended to other factor which Lucky was talking about, compensation, how you design your leaves and so on. So flexibility becomes important along with the positioning part of it. That okay, how we are valuing you, and but these are the options which are available, how you can on that particular thing. Key aspect to look into, learning literally happens in a right environment. Okay. So far, in many organizations, they have a feeling that we are a family, but we have to move away from that kind of a mindset. We are a community. Organizations are not a family; they are a community. We have to build a community, and there are rules of building a community. Okay, in a community, you respect everyone, you give space to everyone, you listen to everyone's view. You have certain scope to absorb the certain polarized views. Those are the rules of a community. That becomes an entire shift in the culture. So So that shift from family to community is very important, which will help in engaging with this kind of post-pandemic world, and also upskilling people, building a right kind of a culture. That's my other second view on that.
No, I think that's a great point. And I think definitely a fresh point, building a community as compared to think your family. But that word is used more often than you believe, Mridang, especially in the family.
Yeah.
And therefore, it pretty much brings to a question that I'll ask both of you, in summary of this entire thing. Despite, and I'm sure both of you are in some sense would be experiencing, despite the fact that we are looking at the right compensation, the right culture, investing, upskilling in employees, etc., and all that, there seems to be right now a perpetual culture of movement which is taking place. And the actual duration that most employees spend in a company is actually statistically coming down, right? The mean time spent in any particular company. Is it that things have changed? And as organizations, we are not doing enough. We took it for granted earlier. To be honest with you, when I asked somebody a long time back, saying, "Hey, listen, 1970s, 80s, people used to join an FMCG company and continue to work with them from the being the absolute frontliner to area sales manager to go right up till senior director positions." But now it seems to be that pretty much it's a year and a half, 2 years, and then it's the next thing and the next thing. Some part is explained by the concept of fear of missing out. Is there something, therefore, it's something that organizations need to be aware about and can do with respect to this? Or is it that we have to kind of come to a conclusion saying, given in a high growth environment that India is experiencing and will experience over the next 15, 20 years, this is what it's going to be, and we'll have to make sure saying our businesses are protected from this, right? So one by one, first request Mrigank and then Lucky.
Sure. So on this topic, I guess we have seen a trend. 40, 50 years ago, people used to join and then retire. Then people started shifting with 8, 10 years of experience. Now we see people shifting 4, 5 years. Now probably people are shifting 1 or 2 years on that. In my view, it's a short-term trend where people are shifting too frequently. I guess it will settle in a way that they will like to value the learning coming from each stint. They like to value the personal time versus professional time, their work-life harmony kind of a thing. So which will ease out this duration to a place where each individual will optimize certain things which they are getting by sticking in an organization versus shifting to a new organization. Okay. My personal observation has been that probably people will settle into doing 2 roles in one organization. The duration of the 2 roles could be different. Okay. So why I'm saying 2 roles in one organization, because you will get to know different departments or different exposure in the same organization. If you do only one role in organization and then move, your exposure gets limited to some extent. One role could be of 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. That could be a different story on that. This is my personal take. Anyone balancing between learning, personal life, compensation increment that he or she will get with a change in job, 2 roles rule will follow. People will start following sooner or later.
Oh, fantastic. Lucky, the same question to you. What do you think employers can potentially do?
So I personally feel people born in 70s and 80s had different view, the continuity and the commitment towards the job. Today we are working with people who are born in 2000. So their way of thinking is very different. When they come for the interview, they want to retire at the age of 40 and 45. Whereas a person who's born in 70 will ask, can this age be 58 instead of 58 be 60? So the mindset is very different. You can't hold them. And I think that is a trend and we have to go with the trend. So today you don't depend upon employees, but you depend upon the role. And you have things in such an autopilot way that, a new person coming in can adapt and, go on, because you can't keep holding people. What you can do is that, your culture will hold people, your benefits will hold people, but if people still have to move, they move. And we as an organization should be prepared for that type of a turnover, because we are dealing with millennials. Their requirement is very different. They are not content. Like today, if I see a person with 5 years experience and I see 4 job change, Earlier 70s, people were born in 70. I used to see 20 years of experience, 2 job change, 3 job change. It's a mindset and you can't do anything. We are evolving, and so is the time is evolving. People's mindset is different. We have to live with it, and we will have to tackle these things.
Oh, fantastic. And, with that, we pretty much, come to our end of a nearly hour. I think really solid insights, and I'm actually particularly pleased because, Lucky, you represent a large established organization over a 120-year, lifespan, and of course still young. And Mrigank, you are part of a larger conglomerate, but I can see a near, resonance and coming together of ideas. And I think the singular message I'm sure the audience would have got, and it's for me as well, is I think there's a need to be open and flexible with respect to what's happening around. I loved your idea of community, Mrigank, and I think that's definitely a mindset shift which needs to come around. And Lucky, on all your points of how we need to be more open, to the feedback given by young and millennial employees, I think is absolutely spot on. Right. With that, we come to the end of this session. I would like to thank both of you, Lucky and Mrigank, and I'm hoping our audience picked up a few points as well this afternoon. Thank you so much.